Imagine having the power to unlock doors just by asking the right question. Not manipulation, not force. Just the artful, intentional act of asking. Now, what if I told you that legendary psychologist Carl Jung had insights that could change the way you view asking forever? The art of asking how to get whatever you want isn't about tactics or tricks. It's about tapping into something far deeper. Your relationship with yourself, with others, and with the unconscious forces that shape our desires and decisions. Jung believed that the questions we ask reveal more about who we are than the answers we seek. And once you learn to ask with clarity, purpose, and authenticity, the world begins to respond in kind. Think about it. How often do we stay silent, convinced that asking makes us look weak, needy, or unworthy? But Jung flips that idea on its head. He shows us that the courage to ask, truly ask, is one of the most powerful expressions of the self. Because to ask is to acknowledge what you want, what you need, and who you are. It requires self-awareness, trust in the process, and an openness to receive. When you ask from a place of inner alignment, you don't just get what you want. You grow into the kind of person who naturally attracts it. This journey dives into the psyche, peeling back the layers of fear, shame, and ego that so often hold us back. You'll learn how unconscious patterns sabotage your ability to ask, how childhood conditioning wires your expectations, and how shadow work can reveal the hidden truths behind what you truly desire. Jung teaches that asking is not about demanding. It's about inviting connection, embracing vulnerability, and creating a bridge between your internal world and external reality. You'll begin to notice the subtle difference between asking with entitlement and asking with intention, between seeking validation and seeking truth, between expecting outcomes and exploring possibilities, and perhaps most powerful of all, you'll start to notice that the world you once thought was closed off to you was never closed at all. It was simply waiting for you to ask, wisely. If you've ever struggled with asking for help, setting boundaries, or expressing your needs, this is your invitation to step into a new kind of power. A power rooted not in control, but in conscious communication. As you watch this, let the message settle in. What if getting what you want isn't about trying harder, but about asking better? If that idea stirs something in you, share your thoughts in the comments. And maybe, just maybe, share this video with someone who's been afraid to ask for what they deserve. The power of intentional asking begins with a truth many people overlook. Most of us don't truly know what we're asking for. We live in a world flooded with demands, wants, and surface-level desires, yet so few of those are grounded in clarity. To ask intentionally means to ask with purpose, presence, and precision. It means knowing exactly what you want, why you want it, and being emotionally prepared for the answer, whether it's yes, no, or something unexpected. Carl Jung, while not known for writing about asking in the modern sense of negotiation or persuasion, provided profound insights into the inner world that explain why some people ask and receive, while others never even make the attempt. At the core of his psychological philosophy lies the belief that our external behavior is a reflection of our internal state. That means your ability or inability to ask is not merely about confidence or communication skills, but about what's happening deep within your psyche. To ask intentionally, you have to understand the origin of the desire behind the question. Jung believed that the self, the totality of who we are, including our conscious mind and unconscious impulses, is in constant conversation with the world. Every time we ask for something, we're expressing a part of that self. But if the self is fragmented, unclear, or conflicted, the request will carry those same qualities. A scattered self asks scattered questions and receives scattered results. Think about how many times you've asked for something while secretly feeling undeserving of it, or not sure if you even wanted it in the first place. that energetic mismatch can be felt by others, whether they realize it or not. Intentional asking is clean. It's not manipulative, nor is it apologetic. It's rooted in self-trust, and self-trust is only possible when one has done the inner work to understand what drives them. Many people walk around with a subconscious script running in their minds, a script often written in childhood. They may have learned that asking leads to rejection, embarrassment, or punishment. Others may have been overindulged and learned to ask without respect, treating every desire as a right rather than a request. Neither extreme is healthy. Jung would encourage exploration of those internal stories, not to blame or dwell in the past, but to rewrite the current narrative. A person who recognizes their past conditioning can begin to ask with fresh eyes, not as a wounded child or an entitled adult, but as a grounded individual who respects both themselves and others. When you carry this awareness, your asking transforms. You're no longer trying to fill a void or prove something. You're expressing a need, a desire, or a boundary from a centered place. Another layer to intentional asking is the energy behind it. Jung believed in the existence of the collective unconscious, a field of shared symbols and emotions that connect all people. When we ask, we are not only engaging with another individual, but we're also tapping into that larger field of meaning and resonance. This is why asking with desperation often repels, while asking with calm conviction attracts. People respond not just to words, but to the emotional and symbolic weight carried by those words. That's why you can say the exact same sentence, "Can you help me?" and get two entirely different reactions depending on how aligned your intention is. One version feels like pressure, the other feels like partnership. To reach that level of alignment, you must confront your own inner dialogue. What beliefs are you holding about yourself? Do you believe you're worthy of receiving? Do you think your needs matter? Intentional asking can't happen without first answering those internal questions. Jung spoke often about individuation, the process by which a person becomes whole by integrating all parts of themselves, the conscious and unconscious, the light and the shadow. Asking is a practice that forces this integration. It reveals where you feel strong and where you feel small. It uncovers the parts of you that still seek validation and the parts that are learning to stand on their own. It is in this process that true growth happens. Each time you ask with awareness, you're bringing more of your authentic self into the world. What's equally important is understanding the difference between asking as a form of control versus asking as a form of collaboration. Many people ask not because they are ready to receive, but because they are trying to manipulate the outcome. They believe that if they say the right words, they can avoid disappointment or rejection. But this kind of asking is rooted in fear, not intention. Jung's work reminds us that we cannot control life, only participate in it. Intentional asking respects the autonomy of the other person. It says, "This is what I need or want, and I trust you to respond in your own truth." That kind of honesty opens up space for deeper connections and mutual respect. You also begin to notice that intentional asking invites alignment in your environment. Opportunities, people, and ideas begin to show up that match the clarity of your intent. Jung believed in synchronicity, meaningful coincidences that arise when we're in tune with our unconscious and the universe. When you ask with pure intent, you're not just putting words into the air. You're aligning with those deeper forces that help bring your desire into reality in often unexpected ways. You stop trying to control the how and start trusting the why. And that's where the magic lies. But it's important to remember that intentional asking doesn't guarantee immediate gratification. In fact, sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes the delay is long. But when you're asking from a place of alignment, even a no becomes a form of guidance, not rejection. Jung taught that life itself is a dialogue between opposites, between what we want and what we need, between what we chase and what we must surrender. Intentional asking accepts all answers as part of the greater journey. You learn to detach from the outcome because the value lies not in the answer, but in the act of asking itself. The more you practice this, the more your confidence grows, not because you always get what you ask for, but because you know you're no longer abandoning your voice. In a world that often rewards silence, people, pleasing or over-assertiveness, learning to ask with intention is a revolutionary act. It reclaims your inner authority. It honors your desires. It builds real connections based on truth instead of performance. And most importantly, it reminds you that you are an active participant in the shaping of your own life. When you ask with clarity, the world becomes clearer in return. So take a moment and reflect. When was the last time you truly asked for what you wanted? Not with fear, not with control, but with confidence, humility, and intention. If that question moves something in you, maybe it's time to start asking. Before you can truly ask for anything in life, you must first understand what it is you're asking for, and even more importantly, why you're asking for it. Carl Jung's teachings often revolved around the idea that clarity begins within. He believed that the unconscious mind, the hidden realm of our thoughts, feelings, fears, and instincts, holds tremendous influence over our behavior and desires. Without a deep understanding of ourselves, we end up asking from a place of confusion, insecurity, or projection. It's like trying to navigate through fog. You can move forward, but you're not really sure where you're going or why. To ask effectively, purposefully, and confidently, you must first become deeply acquainted with your own internal world. Knowing yourself isn't a simple task. In fact, it can be one of the most difficult journeys a person can take. Jung emphasized the process of individuation, the path of integrating the conscious with the unconscious, bringing together the different parts of the psyche to create a more whole and authentic self. This inner unity allows for a kind of mental and emotional clarity that's essential before making any meaningful ask. When you don't know yourself, your asking becomes scattered. You may ask for approval when what you truly want is respect. You may ask for attention when what your soul craves is connection. Or perhaps you ask for success because you're afraid of failure, not because you genuinely want to grow or create something valuable. All these forms of asking are misaligned because the root desire isn't clear, and Jung would say that what remains unconscious will continue to shape your life until you make it conscious. This is why self-awareness is the foundation of all authentic expression, especially in communication. When you engage with the world from a place of clarity, people can feel it. There's a certain confidence that radiates, not arrogance, not entitlement, but the calm assurance of someone who understands their own motivations. That kind of energy is magnetic, but the reverse is also true. When you ask for something but you're unsure of what you're really seeking, people will often hesitate to engage. They may sense your uncertainty and pull away. It's not because your request is invalid, but because your own doubt dilutes its impact. You might be speaking the words, but energetically, you're sending mixed signals. Jung taught that our inner world always leaks into our outer experience. No matter how carefully we craft our words, our unconscious state will always find a way to express itself through tone, body language, or emotional charge. So how do you begin to know yourself in a way that brings clarity to your asking? You start by observing. Begin to notice your patterns, what you ask for, who you ask it from, and how you feel when you're asking. Do you often feel guilt, anxiety, or pressure when making a request? Do you tend to over-explain or justify your needs? Do you avoid asking altogether and hope others will just know what you want? These behaviors point to unconscious beliefs about worthiness, vulnerability, and connection. Jung would encourage you not to judge these tendencies, but to study them like clues. Every emotional reaction you have in the act of asking is a doorway to deeper self-knowledge. One of Jung's most profound contributions to psychology was his work on archetypes, universal patterns of behavior that live in the collective unconscious. These archetypes often play out in our personal relationships and internal conflicts. For example, if you're unconsciously stuck in the archetype of the child, you may feel powerless or dependent when it comes to expressing needs. If you embody the martyr, you might suppress your desires altogether, believing that asking for something makes you selfish or ungrateful. Becoming aware of these patterns allows you to step outside of them. You begin to realize that these roles are not fixed identities, but habitual lenses through which you view yourself and the world. The more conscious you become of these dynamics, the more freedom you have to rewrite them. Knowing yourself also means recognizing your emotional landscape. Emotions are not barriers to asking, they are guides. If you feel a strong emotional charge when asking for something, that's worth examining. Is it fear of rejection? Is it resentment from past experiences where your needs were ignored or belittled? Is it shame around wanting something you were taught not to value? These emotions hold vital information. Jung believed that emotions act as messengers from the unconscious, signaling areas that require healing, attention, or growth. Ignoring them leads to disconnection and frustration. Embracing them, on the other hand, brings clarity. When you fully acknowledge your emotions, you can ask not from a place of reactivity, but from a place of grounded truth. Another layer to knowing yourself is understanding the difference between your authentic self and the persona you present to the world. Jung used the term persona to describe the mask we wear in public, the version of ourselves we think others will accept, admire, or love. While having a persona is necessary to navigate social life, problems arise when we become so identified with the persona that we lose touch with who we really are underneath. This disconnection makes authentic asking almost impossible. If you're asking from your persona, you're likely asking for things that will maintain an image, not nourish your soul. Maybe you ask for more responsibilities at work to seem competent, even though you're exhausted and craving rest. Or maybe you pretend not to need help because your persona is built around independence and strength. These kinds of asks create more distance between you and your true self. To ask effectively, you need to break through the persona and speak from the self, the deep, integrated part of you that is aware of your full complexity, your flaws, your desires, and your purpose. This doesn't mean you become brutally blunt or overly emotional. It means you become honest, with yourself first and then with others. You start to ask for what aligns with your truth, not what fits a role, and in doing so, you give others permission to do the same. There's also a profound spiritual element in knowing yourself before you ask. Jung believed that each individual had a unique purpose or destiny, a path the soul wants to walk. When you ask without knowing yourself, you risk asking for things that pull you further away from that path. But when you're in tune with who you really are, your desires become more aligned with your inner journey. Your asking becomes a form of guidance, a way to navigate forward with integrity and courage. You start to recognize that some things you once desperately wanted were actually substitutes for something deeper, belonging, meaning, peace. And once you connect with those deeper needs, your asks become simpler but infinitely more powerful. This level of clarity changes how others respond to you. People are drawn to those who speak from the heart with clarity and conviction. Your words carry more weight, not because you speak louder, but because you speak from a place of self-knowledge. You don't need to convince, manipulate, or impress. You simply express, and that kind of asking opens doors, not just externally, but internally, where the real transformation begins. If you're someone who has struggled with asking, perhaps the journey isn't just about learning better strategies or communication techniques. Perhaps it's about turning inward and asking yourself first, who am I? What do I truly want? And am I ready to receive it when it comes? The answers to those questions may not come easily, but once they do, the way you move through the world, and the way the world responds to you, will never be the same. The third key point centers on one of Carl Jung's most profound contributions to psychology, shadow work. This concept offers a transformative pathway to uncover the hidden needs and unconscious motives that shape our lives, and especially the way we ask for what we want. At first glance, asking may appear to be a simple act of communication, but in reality, every request we make carries a psychological weight formed by past experiences, deep emotional wounds, and suppressed aspects of the self. Jung's idea of the shadow refers to the parts of ourselves we reject, deny, or fail to recognize. Traits we've pushed into the unconscious because they didn't align with our self-image, our upbringing, or societal expectations. The problem is, those hidden aspects don't disappear. They fester in silence, influencing our emotions, decisions, relationships, and even the way we ask for things. Shadow work is the brave process of bringing those rejected parts into the light of awareness. Consider this. How often do you silence a need before it even has a chance to be voiced? How many times have you felt the urge to ask for help, support, love, recognition, but stopped yourself because something inside said you didn't deserve it, or you might be judged, or you'd look weak? That voice inside is often the voice of the shadow. It holds the pain of all the times you were ignored, misunderstood, punished, or shamed for expressing your needs. Jung taught that until we face these disowned parts of ourselves, they continue to sabotage our growth. We don't ask not because we don't want something, but because a hidden part of us believes we're not allowed to have it. For example, you may find yourself constantly giving to others, but never asking for anything in return. On the surface, it may look like kindness, but beneath it, there might be a shadow belief that your value lies in being needed, not in being honest about your own needs. Or perhaps you ask for things indirectly, with hints or passive language, because you fear confrontation or rejection. That fear didn't appear overnight. It's likely rooted in childhood, where asking was met with disappointment, anger, or neglect. Shadow work invites you to revisit those early emotional imprints, not to relive them in pain, but to understand how they still live in your body and behavior today. When you avoid your shadow, it doesn't go away, it leaks into your life in unconscious ways. It shows up in resentment when your silent needs aren't met. It appears in anxiety when you have to speak up. It lives in the frustration of watching others succeed in asking while you remain stuck in silence. Jung's view of the psyche was that wholeness comes not from perfection, but from integration. That means taking radical ownership of all parts of yourself. The needy parts, the angry parts, the selfish parts, the insecure parts, and recognizing that they are not your enemies. They are signals from within, pointing you toward healing. Every part of you that has been told not to speak, not to ask, not to want, carries a message, and until you listen, you'll keep asking from a fragmented self. Once you begin to engage with the shadow consciously, you start to notice how your internal blocks are connected to your external results. Perhaps you've noticed that you only feel comfortable asking when you're sure the answer will be yes. Or maybe you avoid asking altogether and hope people will anticipate your needs. Or you might overask in a way that feels pushy or desperate, because a part of you fears being invisible. These patterns are not random. They are rooted in unresolved emotional history, and here lies the transformative power of shadow work. When you become aware of the roots, you gain the power to change the pattern. This is not about blaming yourself or wallowing in the past. It's about being honest enough to say, "I've been asking from a wounded place, and I'm ready to heal." When you begin to explore your shadow, you realize how much of your life has been shaped by avoidance. Avoiding rejection, avoiding judgment, avoiding vulnerability, but the cost of avoidance is immense. It costs you opportunities, connections, growth, and inner peace. Jung believed that facing the shadow is a heroic act. It requires courage to sit with uncomfortable truths about yourself, to admit that you've been afraid or angry or manipulative or ashamed. But when you face these truths, something extraordinary happens. You reclaim the power you once gave away. Asking from a place of integration feels entirely different. It's not about proving your worth or managing someone else's reaction. It's a simple, grounded expression of what is true for you. There's no longer a need to twist your words or hide your motives. You're not performing, you're participating in an honest exchange. When the shadow no longer controls the conversation, your asking becomes cleaner, clearer, and more effective. People sense your authenticity, and the right ones respond with openness and respect. It's also important to understand that the shadow contains not only the negative traits we suppress, but also our hidden gifts and desires. Jung often spoke of the shadow as the container of untapped potential. Sometimes we don't ask for what we want because we're afraid of our own power. We're afraid of what it would mean to fully step into our purpose, our talents, our voice. Shadow work reveals that what we fear losing by asking, approval, safety, control, is nothing compared to what we gain, a life lived on our own terms. When you connect with the parts of yourself that long to express, create, lead, love, and be seen, you start to ask for things that truly reflect your soul's purpose. These are no longer surface-level asks. They're declarations of who you are becoming. And yet, the journey is rarely linear. Sometimes you will uncover a new layer of your shadow and feel the old fears creeping back in. That's okay. Jung reminded us that the psyche is a complex, evolving system. Integration doesn't happen overnight. It happens moment by moment, each time you choose to listen to your inner voice instead of silencing it. Each time you speak up even when your hands are shaking. Each time you let someone see the real you. The more you practice this, the stronger you become, not in a hardened way, but in a grounded, compassionate way. Real strength comes from knowing yourself deeply, embracing your imperfections, and asking anyway. Because asking is not just about getting what you want, it's about honoring your truth. And when that truth has been buried under layers of fear, guilt, or shame, uncovering it becomes an act of liberation. Jung believed that the journey toward wholeness is sacred, not perfect, not easy, but sacred. And every time you face your shadow and choose to ask from a place of self-awareness, you take a step closer to that wholeness. So if you've ever wondered why asking feels so difficult, or why your requests don't land the way you hoped, perhaps it's time to look inward, not to criticize yourself, but to understand, not to fix what's broken, but to welcome back the parts of you that you've hidden away. In doing so, you begin to transform not just your communication, but your entire relationship with yourself and the world. And maybe, just maybe, you'll find that the thing you were asking for wasn't out there after all. It was within you all along, waiting to be seen. To ask for what you want is one thing. To ask with belief, the deep, internal certainty that you deserve it and that it can come to you, is something else entirely. Carl Jung's work reminds us that our external reality is deeply connected to our inner psychology. If we want to change the way the world responds to us, we must first examine how we are responding to ourselves. Belief is not just a surface-level affirmation you repeat in front of a mirror. It's a core energy that vibrates through your tone, your body language, and your presence. You can say all the right words, craft the perfect request, and still fail to receive if what you carry inside is self-doubt, fear, or unworthiness. Jung would tell us that to truly ask with belief, we have to rewire the beliefs formed in the unconscious. Beliefs shaped in our earliest environments, imprinted by family, culture, and past trauma. Many people spend their lives asking while secretly expecting rejection. Not because the world is cruel, but because their own inner voice echoes that rejection louder than anything else. They might say, "I deserve success," but carry an unconscious belief that they're not smart enough, not capable enough, not lucky enough. They might long for love, but believe they are unlovable at their core. These unconscious beliefs are like magnets. They pull in confirmation. When we believe we are not enough, we often sabotage opportunities, avoid speaking up, or choose people and situations that reaffirm our low self-worth. Jung emphasized that what remains unconscious rules our lives. Until we bring those inner narratives to the surface, we ask from a fractured sense of self, and the world responds accordingly. To ask with belief means going on an inner excavation. You must become deeply curious about the beliefs that live beneath your surface. Where did they come from? Are they really yours? Were they passed down from a fearful parent, absorbed through a rigid religion, inherited from a wounded society? Most of our beliefs are not chosen. They are inherited, and the tragedy is that we never question them. We walk through life with limitations that are not our own, repeating patterns that do not serve us, asking for scraps when we were meant to claim something greater. Jung's teachings encourage us to become conscious, to awaken from the trance of our conditioning and choose beliefs that align with our truth, not our fear. This is not about blind optimism or delusional thinking. It's about stepping into a grounded, integrated belief in your own worth. A belief that says, "I don't need to beg, I don't need to manipulate, I don't need to shrink. I am enough as I am, and what I desire is valid." That kind of belief doesn't arise through words alone. It's born through healing. You must be willing to sit with the parts of yourself that have been ignored, wounded, or silenced. The parts that were told they were too much or not enough. You must offer them compassion, not judgment. Because belief doesn't grow through force, it grows through love. When you begin to replace old narratives with new truths, you'll notice a shift, not only in how you ask, but in how others respond. You'll stop asking for permission and start claiming your place. You'll stop apologizing for wanting more and start embodying the value you bring. Jung spoke of the self, the deeper, unified essence of who you are beyond ego, persona, or shadow. When you begin to identify with the self, your belief naturally expands. You no longer need constant external validation to feel worthy. You carry your worth within you, and that energy radiates through every request you make. But belief is also a practice. It must be built, tested, and reinforced through action. This means asking even when you're scared, speaking even when your voice trembles, advocating for yourself even when it's uncomfortable. Every time you do this, you send a signal to your subconscious. My voice matters. My needs matter. I matter. Slowly, the old beliefs begin to weaken and the new ones take root. It won't happen overnight. Some days you'll doubt yourself. Some days you'll fall back into silence, but the path forward is never straight. It spirals, and with each spiral, your belief becomes a little stronger, a little steadier, a little more unshakable. there is also a spiritual element to belief, one Jung deeply understood. He believed that we are not just human beings having random experiences, we are souls on a journey toward wholeness. That means your desires are not meaningless, they are signals, they are clues from the deeper parts of you, pulling you toward growth, expansion, and purpose. When you believe in yourself, you're not just making life easier, you're aligning with your soul's evolution. You're stepping into the life you were meant to live, not the one fear told you to settle for. But to get there, you must be willing to grieve. Yes, grieve, because real belief often requires letting go. Letting go of the version of yourself that played small to survive. Letting go of the dream that wasn't really yours. Letting go of the identity built on pain instead of truth. Grief is part of growth. It clears space for new belief to emerge. Jung understood that transformation often involves descent, a journey into the darker parts of the self. But he also knew that what is found there can lead to incredible strength and renewal. And when you rise from that descent, something in you shifts permanently. You begin to ask not with hope alone, but with faith. Faith not just in outcomes, but in yourself. You stop waiting for someone to tell you that you're good enough. You stop bargaining for love or success. You begin to ask with the quiet confidence of someone who knows they belong here. Someone who understands that asking is not weakness. It's clarity, it's power, it's alignment with your truth. This level of belief changes everything. It changes how you show up in relationships. You no longer tolerate emotional crumbs because you believe you deserve the full meal. It changes how you approach your goals. You no longer postpone your dreams because you trust that your voice matters in the world. It changes how you move through fear. You no longer see fear as a stop sign, but as a signal that you're moving toward growth. Belief transforms your ask from a whisper to a declaration. And when the world hears that kind of ask, it listens. So much of life shifts when you move from asking out of desperation to asking out of belief. It's not about being arrogant or demanding. It's about being anchored. It's about knowing that what you seek is not separate from who you are. It's already connected to you through desire. Jung taught that the psyche seeks balance and integration. When your beliefs align with your desires, your actions become powerful, your voice becomes clear, and your life becomes a reflection of your inner wholeness. Ask with belief, not because you need to prove anything, but because you've remembered who you are. And in that remembering, you give others permission to do the same. If you're ready to step into that space, the world is waiting, not to give you what you want, but to mirror back what you already carry inside. All you have to do is ask and believe. When Carl Jung spoke about individuation, the process of becoming your true, whole self, he was not referring to some distant, abstract ideal. He was describing something incredibly real and practical, the journey of finding your inner voice and learning to trust it. In a world full of noise, where everyone seems to have an opinion about what you should do, say, want, or become, finding that quiet, steady voice within yourself can feel like trying to tune into a distant radio signal. Yet that voice, the authentic, raw, and honest part of you, is the only compass that will ever point you toward a life of fulfillment, and when it comes to the art of asking, that voice is essential. Without it, you're just echoing what others have told you to want. With it, you begin to ask not for approval, but for alignment. Jung believed that each person carries within them a self, a deep, unified center that holds both conscious and unconscious wisdom. It's not the same as the ego, which tries to control, perform, and protect. The self is quieter, wiser, and more complete. It doesn't shout to be heard, but when you slow down and listen, it speaks with a clarity that cuts through confusion. Most people live disconnected from this inner voice. From childhood, they were conditioned to follow rules, please authority figures, fit into categories, and suppress their instincts. Over time, this builds up a wall between the person they are and the person they think they should be. And so when it comes time to ask for something, whether it's love, opportunity, help, or recognition, they ask from a script that isn't even theirs. To reclaim your voice means to break the script. It means to peel back the layers of false identity and ask, what do I actually want? What is true for me, not for my parents, teachers, partners, or friends? That kind of self-inquiry can be uncomfortable. You may discover that some of the things you've been chasing were never really yours. You may realize you've been speaking in a tone that doesn't match your spirit. You may see that your silence wasn't peace, it was fear. Jung's work invites you to bring these realizations into awareness, not to judge yourself, but to finally see yourself, because you cannot ask for what you truly want until you know who you truly are. Finding your voice is not a one-time event, it's a practice. It begins in the small moments, choosing to speak up when you normally shrink back, expressing your opinion even when it's unpopular, honoring your needs instead of dismissing them. It also means listening to the body, because the body speaks the truth before the mind can rationalize it away. That knot in your stomach, the tightness in your chest, the fire in your throat, those are signals. Your voice lives in your body as much as it does in your words. Jung saw the psyche as an integrated system, mind, body, emotion, and spirit. When you listen to all parts of yourself, you begin to speak from wholeness, not just intellect. There's also a powerful relationship between the voice and the shadow. Often, what keeps people from speaking up or asking for what they want isn't a lack of intelligence or vocabulary, it's shame. Deep down, they believe that if they reveal their true desires, they'll be judged, rejected, or exposed. Maybe you were punished for speaking your truth in the past. Maybe someone important to you ignored your needs. Maybe you learned that being quiet was safer. All of those experiences become internalized, forming a kind of inner gag order. Shadow work, the process of exploring and integrating these hidden wounds, is essential to reclaiming your voice. When you bring compassion to those moments of silence and suppression, you begin to heal the parts of you that have been afraid to speak. You may discover that some parts of you don't want to ask because they believe asking is weak or selfish. Maybe you were taught that needing something from others was a burden. Maybe you internalized the belief that you must do everything alone. These beliefs become like invisible chains, limiting your ability to ask with freedom. But when you meet those beliefs with curiosity instead of criticism, they begin to loosen. You realize that your voice isn't a weapon or a demand, it's an offering. And when you offer your voice from a place of truth, others feel that truth and respond to it. Trusting your voice also means trusting its timing. Sometimes you'll feel the urge to speak and not know why. Sometimes your voice will tremble or crack or feel uncertain. That's okay. The voice isn't meant to be perfect. It's meant to be real. Jung spoke about the importance of honoring the full range of the psyche, including the parts that feel unsure or incomplete. Those parts are just as valuable as the confident ones. In fact, vulnerability often makes your voice more powerful, not less. People don't connect to perfection. They connect to authenticity. When you speak from the heart, even with trembling hands, you give others permission to do the same. And yet, trusting your voice doesn't always mean speaking louder. It sometimes means speaking less. It means discerning when to use your energy and when to conserve it, when to speak truth and when to sit with it. Jung taught that wisdom comes from the integration of opposites. That means you don't have to choose between being bold and being reflective. You can be both. Your voice doesn't have to sound like anyone else's. It can be soft and still be strong. It can be passionate and still be precise. The point is not to imitate, it's to embody, and embodiment comes from inner listening. As you begin to live from your voice, you'll notice that the way you ask changes. You'll ask from a place of clarity, not confusion. You'll ask without apology, not out of entitlement, but out of alignment. You'll stop over-explaining, over-justifying, or over-shrinking. Your words will carry weight because they come from depth. And perhaps most importantly, you'll begin to hear the responses differently. Even if the answer is no, it won't crush you, because your worth was never tied to the answer. It was already affirmed the moment you chose to ask. In this way, finding and trusting your voice is one of the most liberating acts of your life. It breaks the cycle of dependence on external validation. It dismantles the need to be liked by everyone. It frees you from the prison of performance, and it brings you into communion with your deeper self, the part of you that already knows what you came here to say, ask, create, and become. Jung believed that each individual has a unique path, a unique calling. Your voice is the bridge to that calling. And when you cross that bridge, you don't just transform your life, you inspire others to cross their own. There will still be moments of fear. There will still be days when doubt creeps in. But the more you practice speaking from your truth, the stronger your voice becomes. Not just in volume, but in resonance. And that resonance will carry you through the discomfort, the resistance, the uncertainty. It will become your guide. And when you're guided by your own voice, the art of asking becomes less about getting something and more about becoming someone whole, someone seen, someone heard. So take a breath, listen in, your voice is waiting, and when you find it, trust it enough to use it. Not just once, but every time it matters, because it always matters, and maybe that's the most powerful ask of all. The truth is, your voice is not just a sound. It is your essence, your story, your power. In a world that constantly tries to mold you, silence you, or make you doubt yourself, the act of asking from your true voice becomes revolutionary. Carl Jung taught us that the journey to the self is not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you truly are beneath all the noise. When you find that voice, honor it and use it to ask boldly. You are not only reclaiming your life, you are awakening a force within you that cannot be denied. So speak even when it's hard, ask even when you're unsure. Trust even when your voice shakes, because your truth deserves to be heard. And once you begin to live from that place of deep alignment, everything changes. Not just what you receive, but who you become. The world doesn't need more echoes. It needs your voice. Speak it.